everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in 9 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in 8 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to get started in about 7 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in 6 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 4 minutes. everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 3 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes. Hello, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 1 minute.
Hello and welcome to ATARC's webinar series. Today, topic experts will share strategies that agencies can implement to alleviate the concern of the unknown and make operations more efficient. My name is Kirsten Patton. I am a performance consultant at Dale Carnegie Tampa Bay, and I have the pleasure of moderating today's panel discussion. ATARC stands for the Advanced Technology Academic Research Center, and ATARC is a nonprofit organization that facilitates collaboration between government, industry, and academia in order to accelerate technology modernization initiatives. ATARC provides ongoing opportunities for cross-agency collaboration through on-site interaction, learning, and market research. I would like to welcome all of our attendees today, and a special thanks to Raj Srivatstan and the entire Symphony AI team. This afternoon on the agenda, we are going to hear from our panelists, followed by a Q&A session. We will also pop in a few poll questions, and we will answer yours as we go. So with that, I just want to begin by reminding you all to please submit your questions of your own in the Q&A section of this platform. And if you would like to receive your CPE credits for attending today's session, make sure that you answer those polls. Now, I would like if we could do a round of introductions for our panelists. So come on camera, come off mute. I'm going to have you each introduce yourself with who you are, what agency you're with, and what your role is there. Gardy, let's start with you, please. I just saw you a second ago.
Yeah, I was trying to adjust my camera a little bit. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect.
Great. Well, it's a pleasure to be on the panel with some of this really distinguished members of the panel. We're looking forward to our discussion. I am coming from the Department of Energy. I I am currently the acting DCIO for our Architecture, Engineering, Technology, Innovation Office, where my office is responsible for driving enterprise strategy, enterprise architecture, data architecture, and we have an initiative called the ICC, the Innovation Community Center. This is where we do a lot of our new and emerging technology evaluations. So we are very interested in how the emerging technologies are coming together. So we're looking forward to this conversation and learning from the panelists and particularly some of the questions we might get asked. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And let's jump over to Allison next.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you today for this panel discussion. As Kristen said, I'm the Deputy Commissioner of the Public Building Service for GSA, and we're tasked with overseeing real property and future hybrid work needs of federal agencies. PBS houses 1.1 million employees working across 50 federal agencies and 400 bureaus. Our real estate portfolio has 1,700 federally owned facilities with over 186 million square feet. 30% of our own facilities are historically significant. Our annual budget is $10 billion. In addition, we manage about $13.6 billion in active construction projects. 92% of our budget is spent in local communities on building maintenance, design and construction contracts in communities across the country. A recent announcement just this past Tuesday, President Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is the most significant step to cut carbon pollution in our nation's history. For GSA, we'll be making the federal footprint greener and more cost efficient with investments of over $2 billion in projects that use low carbon materials, making buildings in our portfolio more sustainable, spurring innovation, and creating small business contracting opportunities along the way. $1 billion in emerging technologies to achieve greater carbon reductions, and $250 million to turn more buildings into high-performance green buildings. This is really significant for us, and I think it plays a big role in the conversation that we're going to be having today. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Happy to have you here. And Dominic.
So I'm Dominic Galello. I'm not with an agency. I'm actually with a commercial company. I'm the CEO of a company called Symphony Industrial AI. We're actually not a new company. We're a 66-year-old company. We've been doing actually fleet readiness for the US Navy for 50 years. We started with the carrier fleet. So 12 ships, 400 assets, 400 machines on each ship. And actually it's documented each year that we provide about for every dollar spent, about $20 in return, because what we do is we find machine condition and potential faults before they happen. And so you don't have to then bring the ship into the shipyard to repair. You can catch these things and do these. We've actually, needless to say, AI wasn't a concept. It was called statistics back years ago. But we have, with a lot of our customers around the world, used AI with really domain knowledge, right? AI is really interesting, but insufficient. But, mechanical engineering, chemical engineering domain knowledge, when you attach those things together for prediction and prescription, everything from fleet readiness to physical plant and, not tripping plants and those types of things. That's what we do every day for our users around the world.
Excellent. Well, it's great to have you all on this panel today. So now that we've completed our introductions, I'm going to ask if our first poll question could please be popped up on the screen. And again, if you are at home and you want to receive your CPE credit, please go ahead and respond to poll question number 1. And also, if you already have some questions for our panelists based on the introductions, go ahead and send those in. But poll question number 1, what kind of equipment does your agency rely on for its day-to-day operations? And the answers we have provided are specialized processing equipment, facilities equipment such as HVAC systems or other mission-specific equipment. Now, that poll actually ties into the first question that we have on our list. So I'll go not in order for every single question, but in this case, we'll just go back around. Gardy, maybe you can respond to this one. What role does process equipment and facility equipment play in the day-to-day operations of your agency? And Dominic, I know you'll be coming at it from a industry perspective, but
Sure.
Gardy, go ahead and respond to that one for us, please.
Sure. So I think one of the areas where we process and equipment management has been playing a critical role for us. Some of you may be familiar with the data center optimization initiative. It's an OMB driven initiative that's basically said in all agencies with data centers, multiple data centers should work on reducing their footprint. So this is an effort we've been working on for the past 10 years before my time. But one of the things that we've been doing, and then there was a particular equipment that or software that we deploy with some AI capability on it, is it's allowing us to really do some really sophisticated things that we would not otherwise be able to do. It's allowing us to sort of monitor our energy usage, which is extremely important. We are the Department of Energy after all, right? The last thing we want is to have a report out there. We're not doing a good job with energy management, and we're able to sort of provide predictive analytics or predictive insights on our sort of the usage on how and when we should be using a particular machine, particularly for those massive simulations that the labs tend to run in their data centers. We're able to sort of help save time and money because now we can kind of slot different jobs and different processes and times that are more efficient. We're able to run simulations as far as what happened is if a machine goes down, and what happened if we took a machine offline, and what happened from an environmental perspective, right? And also we were able to sort of determine where to put a particular machine in a data center that has this particular capability, so that we can get the best usage, and we could run it at a much more cost efficient manner, right? If we position it in this section of the data center, we're able to sort of get a little bit more energy consumption on how much we're spending to run processes and whatnot on that machine or on that server. So it's been really critical for us. I think we've managed to save over $44 million since the enactment of this process of this initiative, and we're looking to do some more because, as you all know, the integration or the intersection between IoT and IT, it's something that we're all trying to figure out. The more we can figure out how do we bring facilities closer to IT, the more we're going to be able to find those efficiencies and save more money. So that's kind of how we're using these processes within the Department of Energy. Well, it's one of the things that we're doing. As you know, the Department of Energy is a very large organization. We have the labs, the PMAs. Different organizations are using different techniques and different tools to help them to get efficiencies wherever they may be.
Yeah, thank you, Gardy. And we'll continue to discuss business benefits later on during the panel discussion as well. But Allison, same question over to you. What role does process equipment and facility equipment play in your day-to-day operations at GSA?
Sure. Little different than what Gardy was saying in that we're facilities managers. So for about 200 million square feet, the facilities equipment, for example, mechanical, electrical, IT infrastructure, plays the most important role in the day-to-day operations of these federal buildings. Building monitoring and control BMC systems, along with the fault detection analytics, are really the brains behind the daily operations and control of mechanical and electrical equipment for tenant comfort, indoor environmental quality, energy reduction and savings, and performance optimization. So our National Computerized Maintenance Management System, NCMMS, is the hub for managing our portfolio of facilities, equipment, and work orders for all the day-to-day. We have about 2,000 users who maintain approximately 1.5 million pieces of equipment in 1,500 plus federal buildings totaling 200 million square feet. So the whole facilities equipment piece is major for how we run the operations for these facilities.
Absolutely. And Dominic, how does industry play into all of this?
Well, I think in terms of reliability, carbon reduction, keeping things readiness type of thing, you really have to look at the pieces of equipment, right? If it's simple equipment that you have in a repair on something, you have a replacement on the shelf. I like to think of things like vibration as a temperature check, on really what's going on type of thing. But of course, a lot of this equipment is very, very complicated. All of the suppliers of this equipment are putting all kinds of sensor information on it. And how do you make the most of that sensor information? I don't call it AI, I call it multivariate analysis. What I will say is that, where vibration is a temperature check, AI and multivariate analysis is an MRI, right? So it has to be a real critical piece of equipment that it's too expensive to put one on the shelf, as a repair. So it really is a balance of the right kind of condition monitoring, the right kind of tools for not only the asset health, but the process optimization. Changing an air-gas ratio can have an enormous impact on carbon reduction, those types of things. And so the right kind of tools for the right kind of equipment.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, we're going to pop up poll question number 2 here real quick. It'll be up on the screen. There you go. What has been the impact of equipment downtime in your operations during the past year? So whether it be several hours or a week or several weeks, please go ahead and respond to that. Allison, I want to call on you first for this next question. What business benefits would GSA gain from maximizing uptime for these types of equipment and being able to avoid machine failures?
Thank you. And I think Dominic started to hit on what I'm about to say here, but the preventative and predictive maintenance is really the key to keeping this equipment operating at peak performance and supporting our tenants' missions. Them not having the downtime is definitely significant. Maximizing uptime on process and facility equipment is a key component of financial savings, cost avoidance, and once again, tenant satisfaction and enhancing their ability to really fully function, deliver their mission. Machine failures are detrimental to planned improvement budgets because typically they require emergency maintenance, contractor overtime, and other aspects that drive up repair and replacement costs. So with proper preventative and predictive maintenance programs in place, uptime and performance can really be enhanced along with reducing those costly expenditures that I talked about and what our overall operating budget is. Thank you.
And if I could just add that when it's an emergency repair, safety goes down, right? It becomes much more dangerous when you're rushing. It really becomes a big issue.
Yeah, thank you. Gardy, do you have anything to add to that?
I would just add that in addition to what Dominic just said, and Allison, I think whenever you have to respond to an emergency, it's always more expensive. It's extremely expensive, right? Because oftentimes you're trying to sort of maintain some level of operations while you're trying to fix that problem, and also you're having to pay for the cost of not having had the predictive ability to react to the problem. I think that's another sort of benefit of having these capabilities in place. And I would also say that from a DOE perspective, we're talking about these data centers where we're running massive sort of simulations and whatnot, and there are a ton of these jobs in the backlog to run. So the more downtime you have, the less people can get done, right? The less jobs that could be run, and or the less downtime you have, the more work you can get done. So and the more discovery we could have, the more we can push the envelope in terms of and new. I guess that the benefits are really really significant in that aspect.
Sure, absolutely. Do any of our panelists have anything additional they'd like to add before we move on to the next question?
We're good.
All right, great. So, Gardy, I'll start with you on this question here then. Could you please describe your current approach to monitoring asset health and any experience that you have with analyzing asset logs in order to predict failure?
We're using a tool called Enlight. And this is not an advertisement, but I think the question sort of warrant the name drop here. And we're using that same to sort of tell us, how are these assets are doing? What's the state of a particular machine, or what's the condition in a particular data center and whatnot. And using this tool, we're able to sort of know, where adjustments are needed, so that we can prevent failures. The goal is to really prevent failures or to react in a timely manner so that you can reduce the impact on your stakeholders, right? That's really the goal here. And the more we use these tools, and the better we tend to do. And in places where we don't, I had a situation where we were using SaaS product, and we had a failure, and only a couple of people knew about it. And to me, these are opportunities where we could do more by deploying some of these capabilities, the sort of the sensors, or enable some of these sensors, because some of these machines that we have, some of the technologies that we have, I should say, they already come with some of these capabilities. It's turning them on and applying any other sort of additional capabilities on top of them, such as predictive analytics and machine learning type capabilities, to help us to kind of make decisions in real time. And if we can do that, again, there is significant opportunities there.
Great, thank you. Dominic, how would you respond to that question?
Well, just repeat the question, sorry.
Absolutely, or
Sorry.
anything that resonated based on Gardy's response. But the question originally was if you could describe your current approach to monitoring asset health, and any experience that you have with analyzing.
Yeah, I think a couple of experiences. Number one, when it comes to AI and multivariate models, right, putting them together, right? Number one, basically all this ML stuff is interesting, but you have to put the domain expertise, failure modes, those types of things on it. So you want to, of course, pinpoint contributing factors, root cause, and always causes and recommendations, that what should I do? And this is kind of the domain explainers that can tell you what to do, number one. Number two, as you get into more and more of this IoT data coming in, like in 3 years, it's going to be 24 billion sensors on the planet, right? One of the things I ask my users after they go through a project like this is, what have you learned from the project? And they all say the same thing. My sensor data is not as good as I thought, right? Sensor data, all of a sudden it flatlines or it spikes. And do you impute for the data? Do you just eliminate it? Those types of things. So I would say that, and then I think the thing is, everyone is so busy. This is the great resignation. It's really hard to get all these technical people, right? And actually, many of our users ask us for monitoring services. They want us to, and that was not planned as our business. It's not our goal. We like to be a software company, but monitoring services, because all these sophisticated models, actually, it really is, your statistics, Allison, are just mind-boggling. But let's just take a Cargill, a food, $110 billion food manufacturer. They have 1,200 plants. They can't hire 1,200 data scientists, all over the world type of thing. So they just say, you do it. So again, the data coming off the sensors is really interesting. It's not as good as you think. How to curate these models that'll basically, what's the causes and what's the recommendation? And then how are you going to actually have all the people to monitor stuff are like three big learnings of our journey with our users around the world, both government as well as commercial users.
Thank you, Dominic. And Allison, I want to throw it over to you next to hear some of your thoughts.
So interesting, I just got off a meeting talking about nutrition, attrition. and unfortunately, we are all competing for those resources, right?
Yes.
Those technologists that are so linked into everything that we're doing in this area of super sophisticated systems and the analysis and predictability of creating these models. So one of the combination of our NCMMS system along with the fault detection diagnosis platform with robust trending helps us to not only provide that planned maintenance in terms of work orders, but to try to do that prediction and prevention, which results in the costly downtime. So we have a GSA Smart Buildings program, which currently supports our facilities management NCMMS with real-time equipment operational data. And that's a component of asset health calculations, which is currently in development. So to date, our GSA Smart Buildings GSA Link solution is targeting existing operations, but the data collected from GSA Link can also be used for training for the predictive failure models. So we're really doing a lot in this space, realizing its potential. I think the more we invest in the technology. In addition, we recently updated our policies to require maintenance of equipment logs. So that's really important, right? And then these logs will be leveraged to be, used to predict failures. So a lot going on in this area with ever-changing technology and the ability to really enhance how we operate these facilities.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that with us. Any other comments from our panelists on this or based on what's been said before we move on? All right. Well, we will go ahead and pop up our third poll question then, please. And this question reads, how much experience do you have working with sensors and other equipment monitoring technology? Please go ahead and respond, whether it be very limited, somewhat experienced, or extensive experience. And with that, my next question I want to direct towards Dominic first. I don't think you've started us off just yet. So Dominic, my question is, what is the likely impact of continuously monitoring the health of assets using sensors and wireless technology?
Well, I mean, the impact is very large as long as you get it right. It's very large as long as you get it right. It's pure and simple, which is, as I said before, depending upon the asset itself, how much monitoring do you need? What do you need to monitor it? And the more complex the equipment, then you get into IoT and you get into AI, because you're pulling in temperature, pressure, amperage, all of those types of things. You're looking at, even though it's kind of in spec in any one of those things, basically it's the interaction of all those signals that can provide you that kind of prediction. And I could just tell you that, we have users around the world that, and whenever we start with a user, they give us historical data and, okay, can this AI model have done better? We have ball mills that fail, and we could have predicted it 19 days in advance. One of the things on process type of equipment and process lines is something someone mentioned, there's no historical record of process anomalies, right? We don't have that, type of thing, and you could do that. So I think it's definitely much better housekeeping, number one. Number two, it's a better prediction of, I like to say what we do is give the repair person enough time to do something about it before bad things happen. and how it's really changed. And I think, again, back to Allison, maybe Gardy also, the people who are actually, they were going to all this data when bad things happened, retrospectively to look at what happened and why. And now they can actually focus on planning the, because the maintenance people are limited, right? So where's the highest impact to deploy them? So our users have gone from reactive of something failed, let's go back and try to figure out why, to they know what's going on, they know what will go on, and how do I deploy precious resources to the most critical areas first.
Now, going back to the beginning of your answer, you said as long as you get it right, but what are those implications if you don't? What's at stake?
Well, what's at stake is number one, getting it right means, and the implications is there's this horrible thing called false positives, right? So Gardy and Allison and myself, we can drive users nuts with false positives. We think there's a problem, repair crew runs out there and there's no problem. And then they say, Gardy, you can take your system and keep it. I'm not interested in that, right? Because it's driving me crazy. So having this data stream and the prediction and all of that's involved, getting it right, is to super minimize false positives so that people can trust the system to actually, when there's an alert, that I should respond to it. And again, it could be a machine health issue, or it could be also a process issue, and I should change the set points on the process, right? Slow down RPMs or change the amperage level, those types of things.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating on that. Allison, over to you next. I can repeat the question if you'd like, but again, just likely impact of continuously monitoring the health of your assets.
The primary impact of monitoring asset health would be a more proactive and predictive approach, by all means, to operations and maintenance. The sensors that detect equipment temperature and or vibration, for example, notifying technicians of reduced efficiency in pumps, motors, variable frequency drives, bearings, to better prioritize maintenance schedules or asset management. So definitely all of that is the space that we want to be in. Overall, continuing to monitor asset health lengthens the asset life cycles and helps compare efficiencies or deficiencies in like equipment across our portfolio. Data integrators would need to ensure that the sensor data points necessary are aligned for the inputs of a standardized health calculation by equipment type, and confirm data points where they may not be available through other existing equipment data sources. So there's a lot in this, obviously, and wireless technology is helping us get there for sure. Relying on the sensor data is really important. And I think the last part of the conversation will get into even in more of how we can operate buildings more effectively using sensor data in the new work environment that we're moving toward with hybrid work.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. All right, Gardy, and what are some of your thoughts around this conversation that we're having?
I mean, just to put a fine point on what Dominic just said, in terms of, I think he said if you can get it right, I think that's an extremely important point. And the way you make sure you get it right is that you don't try to sort of boil the whole ocean as you try to deploy these systems, right? You want to architect your systems, and I know I'm using a term that's probably more prevalent in my area, but you want to architect your deployment in a way that you understand, and then you can build sort of insight around, and that will help you to react accordingly, and that way you can be making more accurate decisions, and and sometimes you don't have the luxury, right? If you're running a hospital or you're running some other things that is very critical, you don't want to get the decision wrong the first time. Sometimes you would rather be in a situation where you don't have sensors in place. You have actually people monitoring because they know that that's their job. Whereas you have sensors in place and you deploy them in such a way that the data is not good and you don't have a good model to sort of process this information, you can set yourself up for failure. So that's what I would add to that. It's just making sure that you're managing the deployment of these capabilities and also understand very clearly what you're trying to get out of them, and then so that you know whether or not you're getting it, or if you're not getting it.
Thank you for those insights. Now we're going to take a pause from my questions and we're going to answer some audience questions that have come through. One is in the chat, if you'd like to go ahead and read that real quickly. And then I have one emailed to me, but Michael Tucker asks, are most of the sensors hardwired, or are some of the sensors using a wireless, such as Wi-Fi, cellular, Bluetooth, Zigbee, and NFC technology for installation flexibility? Who from our panel would like to respond to Michael's question? Dominic, you're on mute.
How did I get on mute? I apologize. All of the above and more, even, kind of quick connects and walk around data collectors that, because that's actually pretty cheap, for high resolution, very high frequency type of things. Hardwired systems get very expensive. The electrical is a lot more expensive, the electrical contractor than the actual equipment. And what's interesting is the explosion in the wireless devices, especially like in the area of vibration. They were pretty much like a 2 kilohertz. You couldn't find early stage bearing wear, those types of things. Now they're rolling up to an F max of like 10 kilohertz now. So it's really getting good. So, it is this, like the Moore's law type of thing is really hitting sensors also.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking that one for us, Dominic. Gardy, did you want to add anything?
No, I agree with what Dominic just said. I think the technology is getting extremely cheap in terms of wireless. So that's sort of where the trend is, and the cheap to acquire and cheap to maintain. So there are two really good things that are happening in that space that's really making wireless the go-to technology here. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And Allison, this question is directed towards you. Could you please elaborate on specific green projects and initiatives that GSA plans to undertake based on funding from the recently enacted Inflation Reduction Act?
So we'll be able to elaborate on that a lot more in the near future as we develop project criteria that fits into these 3 buckets of work that I described. We have a backlog of $10 billion of deferred maintenance. So a lot of buildings that are going to surface, past projects that actually didn't get funded, but also we're looking at our long-term holds. That for the American people, to be honest, we don't want to be investing money in buildings that can't be optimized, can't be modernized, and where there maybe no longer is a demand for that federal space in the local communities, depending on what our federal agency partners are telling us. So it's kind of like a 3-part analysis, if you will. What's your demand? What's the need, deferred liability, and then what are our long-term holds for the asset? And then we'll move into which of those projects best meet that criteria, and again, best fit into the Inflation Recovery Act across the US. So more to come on that. We're working on criteria and projects right now, and I'm hoping probably by this fall, we'll know which projects will be going forward. And certainly wanting to be very transparent to the industry, to local communities of where those projects are going to be taking place. So, encouraging all businesses of all sizes and new businesses with emerging technologies to really be interested in looking at this as potential work for their organization.
Thank you, Allison. And similar to that question, actually, in my inbox, someone emailed me, wanted to know, about the new Inflation Reduction Act and how soon we will see the effect on this. So you mentioned fall time, but what if you could gauge, relatively?
So the requirements that we know of so far is for the major projects that outlays, which means essentially contract awards, need to be made in 4 years. So we'll have pretty good idea on vendor selections in the next 4 years. We talk about these projects and they're just not work items, right? There are a lot of systems, infrastructure, technology that goes into the scoping and the project development. So we want to make sure we get that right. Some of the projects could be shovel ready, for example, and others maybe are newly identified long-term holds. And some may be more simple concrete decarbonization projects of concrete repairs that we will want to do. So it's going to vary, but the commitment so far is by 2026, we need to have our obligations, not our outlays, our obligations made.
Great. Thank you, Allison. Okay, and then the last audience question that I have right now, unless a few more get sent in here in the next couple minutes or so, is around remote monitoring. So anyone on the panel, this person is asking, what are some direct benefits of remote monitoring and how ready are agencies to implement this?
I'll take the benefit, talent density, right? If you can put all of your talent in one place, it's an enormous benefit. They can support each other and you can focus in those types of things. So it's without question.
Great, thank you.
Yes, and there's a cost benefit to that, right? You don't have to have people scattered all over the place, and you can get to problems more quickly because you don't necessarily have to get there or to react to the problem. The whole thing, all these things we've been talking about in the past few minutes, right? Just having the ability to know what's going on and know what's going to happen and react to it, and have, I think Dominic talked about subject matter experts. You can imagine if you have your engineers, your scientists, and your business folks, they're sort of in the same room. They can kind of talk to each other when a major problem happens. I mean, that's huge.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, now turning it back over to my script. Again, this is the last call for audience questions before we run out of time. Let's pop up our last poll question. So poll question number 4, what do you think will be the likely impact of using advanced analytics and AI in monitoring and maintaining equipment? The options include minimal impact, some impact, or large transformational impact. And that ties in nicely to my 5th and final question that I do have prepared here. And let's start with Gardy on this one. Again, Gardy, could you please describe your vision of how AI and other data analytics tools could transform the outlook for asset management?
I think what I'm really looking forward to is to the sort of the convergence of the facility monitoring capabilities and IT, right? The IoT and IT, kind of seeing these capabilities coming together. I think that's going to be really where we're going to see significant changes in over the next several years. And as we just talked about, the technology is getting cheaper, and with sort of the accessibility of things that were very difficult to get to. We're talking about predictive analytics and machine learning and all these capabilities. I kind of see it really hard. It's really hard for you to keep these capabilities separate. You have to bring them together. So the more, and I know there is the whole edge computing aspect that this paradigm that's kind of evolving. I think that's going to really be where we're really going to see some really major change, and just seeing how the IT folks are able to support facilities or the engineering team in terms of assets and other equipment monitoring, and be able to make decisions in a way that we haven't been able to do before, because right now you got to sort of hand carry the data. You have to hand carry your part of the decision, so that we can sort of put the puzzle together and make really mission critical decisions. So I'm really kind of looking forward to that change and see how things evolve there.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that vision with us, Gardy. Allison, I'm going to turn it over to you next for the same question.
Thank you. As Gardy said, I'm really excited and energized by the potential of how we're going to be able to transform the way we run our buildings, the way we optimize our buildings, the way we save taxpayer dollars by leveraging these new and emerging technologies. So the data analytics tools have the potential to create so much more objectivity, key performance indicators, and remove some of that subjectivity out of asset management. While institutional knowledge at the site level will always be invaluable, having established metrics for the asset management has the potential to create more continuity during operations and maintenance and facilities management staffing changes, shifting to outsourcing as necessary when we have staffing shortages. So I think just in terms of continuity, this has tremendous potential. And then also how we can monitor. We talk about sensors for monitoring equipment, but also sensors for monitoring utilization, occupants of the space in multi-tenanted buildings, and maybe get into more of a space sharing arrangement than what we've been able to do in the past among federal agencies that require very similar types of spaces. So very, very excited about the potential in transforming how we actually use this technology to operate our buildings. While the additional sensors and analytics may require calibration and training to avoid those false positives that Dominic mentioned, for critical equipment, the shift from reactive maintenance, breakdowns and repairs to proactive maintenance will validate the initial investment costs. We really do believe that. And then leveraging more data analytics for asset management will be an incremental and an iterative process for us in a portfolio of the size that we oversee. But then it's also one that requires evaluation of use cases, which we're doing all the time with the pilots in various locations, the creation of the right metrics, and the sharing of best practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Allison. And Dominic, would love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think I'm going to quote one of our users. He runs all of the air gas plants for a company called Nippon Gases, and these compressors are just enormous. They put them in concrete buildings because if bad things happen, people get hurt. And he said that I don't see, they calls it Industry 4.0. Europe, it's more Industry 4.0, not AI. He said, I don't see this as a replacement for anything. I see this as an evolution of good maintenance practices, right? It's bringing the next level to it. So if you don't have good maintenance practices, I'm not sure this is going to help very much. But if you have good maintenance practices, this can take you to the next level. You know, a lot of what Allison, and much more analytics, much more insight, much more reactive to proactive, much more how to focus the very precious engineers that are hard to hire and hard to keep.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, thank you all for sharing that with us. So we are going to do a little rapid fire audience Q&A because we had 3 come in. So starting with anonymous attendee, they asked, is it possible or advisable to use the predictive maintenance approach that was described in this webinar to mission critical equipment, such as the nuclear power plants overseen by the DOE?
I would say yes. I'm not a nuclear engineer by any means, right? So,
Yeah.
but I think there is certainly aspect of that that we could deploy, high quality sensors for, because we're talking nuclear here, right? We talked about really making sure that our deployment of these capabilities are one that we understand, right? We're not just deploying them because, we were sold by someone that, this capability can do this and it at this rate or what have you. So as long as we're checking these boxes, right, to make sure that, we're not doing anything that will cause us more harm later on in the process, I don't see why not. I think I would certainly encourage it, even if it's as a second layer of detection and monitoring. I think there's the opportunity there, and I think I visited one of the labs that manages a couple of the plants, and I know based on what they showed us that there are these sensors deployed where they're monitoring it, and so yeah, to answer the question, certainly these sensors and AI layering and whatnot. I think all of these have a place in helping to manage and maintain some of these plants or nuclear facilities.
Thank you, Gardy.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. How does deployment of 5G and IoT have an impact on operations? I think Dom.
Yeah, I would say that 5G hasn't had a big impact on it. The data, we pull data from our users all around the world. We put time series data, maybe 1 minute data every 5 minutes type of thing. And, it comes across pretty fast. So I would say the bandwidth hasn't been a big issue with us at all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
If anything, I'm hoping that 5G will even will significantly improve our ability to use these capabilities and get more out of them, right? Because of bandwidth and improvement and whatnot, and so yeah, nothing more to add. Just wanted to say that here.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. All right, Jennifer Diamantis asks, what are some of the KPIs or metrics that can be used to measure and report the success or contribution of data analytics and techniques?
Just
Go ahead, Gordy. Yeah.
No, just in general, I think when we deploy these capabilities, what we are measuring is whether or not we are enabling the mission, and that could mean anything, right? So if we can define this criteria for enabling the mission for this particular problem, then we can measure against it as we deploy the capability, right? And that's not a specific answer, because I answer the question in that manner for a reason, because it depends on where you are. The KPI is going to be somewhat different, right? But it's really, again, it goes back to what we've been talking about, understanding where the opportunities are and deploy your capabilities to address the opportunities. Then you can declare or define clear KPIs that will help you to know whether or not you are achieving success, or you're just doing the same thing in a different way. Like Dominic just said, in so many ways, we're not changing anything, right? We're just kind of adapting best practices and using the technology to help us to do that.
Yeah. For me, one way to track this is moderate, serious, and extremes, right? So all this analytics, is it finding moderate faults, serious faults, or extreme faults, and then putting a cost associated with that. So our users do it all around the world, that basically at the end of the month, how many extreme faults were found, and that we were able to react and do something before it caused failure in the equipment. And we have some users that say that's a $50,000 savings, and some users say that's a $500,000 savings. So the KPIs of monitoring, and it's monitoring across the fleet, or monitoring it by what are your bad actor machines. Then, by the way, if you find a bad actor machine, maybe you should do something about it, right? You need to replace it, those types of things. But you can do it in terms of the machines, and you can do it in terms of the money, right? That moderate, serious, and extremes can actually find.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. And Allison, go ahead. Did you want to say something? Or you
I
want to
was just gonna say, we have an entire dashboard of KPIs. So I was trying to phone a friend here to see if there are a few that she'd care to have me mention, but definitely something that would be happy to get back to you on, Kirsten.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can include that in any sort of follow-up email. Next question from John Organic. Hey, John, is it too early to see results such as a decrease in the frequency of emergency repairs? And will these results be published? So, Allison, I assume this one actually might be directed towards you in regards to one of the previous topics that we covered.
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's talking about the Inflation Act or not. John, you might need to elaborate on your question a little bit, but the question was, is it too early to see results such as a decrease in the frequency of emergency repairs?
Based on our NCMMS data and our GSA Link program?
I
No,
think so. Yeah.
no, it's definitely not too early. This has been probably, I want to at least say close to a decade of work and investing in these technologies and expanding them throughout the portfolio. We're not completely there yet. As funding becomes available, we continue to enhance, expand, and integrate. But we definitely have seen results of this in terms of better ability to track our repairs and equipment downtime, and then that predictive analytics where we want to actually look at the replacement and put those work items into future budget cycles. So, it's just really how we've been operating now for several years, really leveraging the technology with our O&M contractors, our vendors that we leverage heavily in almost every single one of our assets to be very knowledgeable and run the equipment and then run the reports and then report back to the regional headquarters and the central office headquarters with the analytics.
Thank you, Allison. And then
Kirsten, if I could quickly interrupt, I have a flight that's boarding, so I'm going to be safe to everyone. I really do appreciate it because missing the flight to Zurich would cause me big trouble. So it was really,
of course.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Pleasure having you on.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you guys so much for your responses. Let's see, maybe we can fit in a couple more audience questions. There was one about a false positive or false negative, but I think that was probably for Dominic, unless either of you two know what I'm talking about. Let's see. John Organic asks again, how do you spread the results throughout the federal government instead of the light under the bushel basket? So I guess John might just be asking in terms of where can people find this information?
So I'm not sure which information we're talking about, but I think one of the things that we've been trying to do, we put out a scaling IT modernization playbook, just a shameless plug here, where one of the plays in there is really to share risk, to share lessons learned with other sister agencies. And there are different ways to do that. There are different forms where we could do that. We have the Federal CIO Council. We have different subcommittees. We have conversations like this where we can learn as far as what's going on in other organizations and just use the opportunity to spring to more collaborations and share lessons learned. I'm always happy to take my colleagues' questions and or conversations around similar projects because I think it's what we're supposed to do, and that's what we're trying to do here at DOE.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you guys so much. That's pretty much all the time we have for audience questions, because I do want to give you all the opportunity for a key takeaway from this discussion. So I work for Dale Carnegie and we're all about leadership. So I'm wondering if both of you could provide a key takeaway related to this discussion, but from a leadership perspective. So what is it that you really want our audience to walk away with today? Allison, maybe you can kick us off with that wrap up.
I'd be happy to do that. I just, because I'm a public servant and spent my career working for the federal government at GSA, I know not many people stay in a job 34 years anymore, but I've had several positions, and I really think that our goal is to keep these America's buildings, America's assets viable. And our role is to promote the efficient operations for the federal government agencies that we serve. And I think being a leader in this area of sustainable workplaces and sustainable buildings, building resiliency, everything that we have to contribute as a federal agency and a leader across government with our agency partners is just really significant. And I would like to stress with our industry partners, the money that I talked about isn't anything about our employees and what they get. It's really money that's injected into the local communities, whether it's through buildings and operation contracts, construction contracts, outfitting buildings, furnishings and equipment, and IT. The conversation today was really focused on technology and automation and how we really can advance the missions of the federal government through great partnerships with industry and the technologies that are out there to really become the leader, to have this country be the leader in these areas. So I just really appreciate the opportunity to talk today a little bit more about what we do and how we integrate technology of how we run America's buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. And over to you, Gardy.
Sure. I think just to add a little bit to what Allison just said here, again, we're public servants, and our goal is to get the most out every dollar, and is to make sure that we have the finest running government that we can, and we can do that by ourselves, and we certainly rely strongly on our partners who are our integrators and those folks that are helping us to deliver. But one of the things that I think really come out from this conversation for me is that as leaders, we have to really be thinking a couple of steps ahead and help our organizations and help our partners to help us to stay at the cutting edge, even from a government perspective. And I think that at this point, we have no more excuses to really be several iterations behind in terms of where these technologies are. So again, we talk about being predictive and being proactive to some of these problems, but I think from a strategy perspective, our vision have to kind of have that layer of proactive in it, and that's exactly what a vision should do, and that's what I was hearing here. So that would be sort of my takeaway, right? If we're thinking like that, we're doing the right thing, and it's just a matter of let's make sure we execute in a matter of which we just discussed here.
Yeah, very well said, both of you. Thank you so much for doing this with us today, and thank you everybody at home. Let's see, we have one last poll question that you need to respond to if you'd like us to email you your CPE credits. And of course, I also want to thank our partners from Symphony AI for helping us put this whole thing together. So you'll see on our screen, our next webinar is on the Quantum Security Challenge on August 25th. Registration is live, so you can go ahead and register for that if you're interested. Hope to see you guys there. And one more time, Allison and Gardy and Dominic, even though he's off on his flight night right now, really enjoyed the opportunity to speak with you both. So I hope that we continue to stay in touch and have these conversations.
Yes, thank you so much. Enjoyed it. And thank you, Allison.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.